welcome in. It is Big Ten Today. It is great to have you with us on this Tuesday. Dave Reps and Trent Meacham. Today is February 13th. You know what March 13th is?
Well, I know what tomorrow is too. February 14th.
Tomorrow's
March
an important
13th. Is that the start of the Big Ten tournament?
First day of the Big Ten tournament.
And there's so much that could happen in the next month. That's what's exciting.
We are a month away from the start of the Big Ten tournament. You should start to plan your life accordingly. And what is to come is our big story. Here's where we are right now. Jockeying for position, of course, has begun. Purdue's opened up a 2-game lead in the loss column over Illinois. Still one head-to-head game between those two. Northwestern, Wisconsin next. Remember, the Badgers won the lone meeting there, so they're ahead of Northwestern. After that, you have 7 teams with either 6 or 7 conference losses, so all within 2 games of third place in the loss column, and then Maryland, Ohio State, Michigan behind them. So a month until the tourney, I think it's time to start thinking about a bracket. Of course, the top 4 get double byes. Minnesota, remember, is the de facto host. It's in Minneapolis. They would get a bye to Thursday, as would Michigan State, both awaiting Wednesday winners. Thursday would also include matchups between Penn State and Indiana and Nebraska and Iowa. And how about the teams playing on day 1? 3 of those 4 teams have played in the national championship game in this century. Pretty crazy to think about that. Lots can change between now and then, but I know, Trent, you want to talk about some teams that are trending up today. Where are you starting?
And you want to be moving in the right direction this time of year.
The way you want to be trending.
I'm going to be starting with the Spartans. Okay, Michigan State, they've won 6 out of their last 7. And when I look ahead, okay, they're 7-6 in conference now. When I look ahead, it would not surprise me. I would expect them to win 5 or 6 of their next conference games. Wouldn't shock me if they're in that 2 or 3 spot as we hit March 13th, heading into the Big Ten tournament. I just like how this team is trending, how they're playing. I look at their most recent game, win against Illinois, scored 88 points. The key for the Spartans, in my eyes, are Malik Hall and A.J. Hoggard. Those two combined for 55 points in that game. When they're aggressive, when they're getting downhill, when they're getting to the basket, getting to the free throw line, Hoggard 12 for 13, Hall 7 for 9. I think this team, that sets this team apart, and they can beat anyone.
Team that has won 6 of their last 8 games. And it's funny, we think about the struggles they had shooting those first couple of games. During this 8-game stretch where they've won 6 of their last 8, have shot 41% from 3. This has turned into one of the better outside shooting teams in the Big Ten. And I think it gets to kind of the point that you were talking about with Walker and Hoggard. They have really good guards. And when you think about the NCAA tournament and who wins in March, to me it's guard play. And Michigan State has great guard play.
Tom is on the sideline, experienced guards, guys that can close out games. That was the difference against Illinois. A.J. Hoggard made plays. Tyson Walker made it seem like a number of difficult shots. When you have guys that can go get you a bucket, when there's not much, when your offense is stalled, Michigan State has a few of those guys. They dump the ball down to Malik Hall as well. Speaking of guards, Jay Nakins has had his moments where he's shooting the ball better. Trey Holloman's been more quiet lately, but he's shown he's been a capable and pretty consistent shooter. So you have guys off the bench that can give you some firepower. I love their guard play. They have go-to options down the stretch. Their defense has improved, and when they're getting stops, they're out in transition, they're off to the races. That's where they're at their best.
Even when they don't get stops, they're off to the races. One of the really cool things about them, the way that they transition from a made basket by their opponent. We've got them against Penn State tomorrow night here on the Big Ten Network. We'll talk more about that matchup in a bit. All right, so Michigan State is your first trending up. Where are you going next?
Well, Nebraska. This team's been a bit up and down. Big win at home. Now, they're so good at home.
Yes.
Okay. Now, can they get some wins at home on the road? That's where they've struggled because this is a team that they thrive off rhythm. And I think defense is the key because if they get stops, now they're out in transition. They play with some flow, some rhythm. They play differently. It's spaced. It's 5 out. They're 5-man. Enrique Mask can space the floor. Great facilitator. Can also knock down shots. They've gone to a bigger lineup, though, recently, putting Juwan Gary, Josiah Alec, and Mast in their starting lineup. So this is a big group. They also have depth off the bench. I like them. You get into the guts of a season, and it's just a grind. Players are going to be up and down. Tominaga's not going to make these crazy shots every night.
Right.
But you got C.J. Wilcher coming off the bench. They have 4 guys in double figures. Wilcher's at about 9 points a game. He's capable of going for 20-plus. So I love the depth. I love the style of play. And finally, I'd say Fred Hoiberg, I think as a coach, his demeanor, his poise, he's been there as a player, he's been there in the NBA. I love the composure that he brings, and I think that's going to suit them well as they progress forward.
He really likes this team. I had their game against Illinois. I mean, we've talked about they're not great on the road. They had the lead with 10 seconds to go in that game, and Illinois got to the free throw line and was able to force it into overtime. You do wonder about, 0-7 on the road in the conference. They have a really nice win at Kansas State, so it's not like the committee's going to look at them and say this is a team that's incapable of winning road games, and it doesn't matter if you win conference road games or non-conference road games. But I also look at these last three, Indiana, Ohio State, Michigan on the road. I think you should be able to get at least one of those, maybe multiple of those, and I think that would just kind of build their confidence, would certainly build their resume as well.
That's what they need. They're 7-7 now, so you got 6 games left. Can you win all your home games? I expect them to. Can you get one on the road? Now they're at 11-9. Could they get 2? That's a stretch. Maybe they'd be at 12-8 though. I like how they're playing. I like their depth. I like their coach. They also have experience. I expect them to continue playing well, maybe get a win or 2 on the road, and feeling great about themselves heading into March.
Looking to make it to the tourney for the first time in 10 years. This feels like a tourney team. I feel like when I watch them, I mean, certainly at home, they look like world beaters. I mean, they didn't just beat Purdue at home. They obliterated Purdue at home. Was not close down the stretch. Again, the challenge is, can you take that on the road as well? And we'll see here, but you can see why people in Lincoln are so enthusiastic about this team. Those are your top 2 trending up. Where are you going next?
Next, I'm going to Rutgers, winners of 3 straight. Okay, they have the number 2 efficient defense in the country, according to KenPom. They've been fantastic there all season. Amori with 8 blocks last game against Wisconsin, just dominated a good Badger team. So they've been good on that end of the floor. And all of a sudden, Jeremiah Williams' transfer is coming into their lineup. 14-5-5 in the 3 games, the 3 wins that he's been in the lineup. And it feels like he's just unlocked something for them offensively. Gives them another guy that's experienced, that's talented, that can make shots, that you can put the ball in his hands. So it's not just Derek Simpson trying to play hero ball, bailing them out in possessions. You have a guy that's a proven scorer. You insert him there. Now they have some ability on offense. Mawat Mag's playing better in the 3 most recent games. You have a guy like Noah Fernandez knocking down shots off the bench.
Yeah.
Look, if they're making shots like they did against Wisconsin, nobody wants to see them because they're so good on defense. And now offensively, it just feels like there's a rhythm and a flow there. And hey, they're 5-7 now. Okay, so they got 8 games left in the conference race. We'll see if they can continue this winning style. And who knows, they could surprise some people.
They could. They're the second most efficient defense in the country overall this year. So if you just have some modicum of offense, I mean, that was the issue for much of the year. They were just so stagnant on the offensive end. Williams brings them a different kind of player, and I think that's what has really helped them. He is a guy who can go get his own, right? Really athletic, and it just feels like he adds a dimension that they hadn't had before. But you look at that 3-game stretch, and defensively, I mean, they've been ridiculous. Under 0.8 points per possession for their opponents during this 3-game winning streak. It's incredible. Even with their offense still not being great, they've still in that 3-game stretch been the second most efficient team when you factor offense and defense in the Big Ten. So I think this is one of those teams where, look, they're not going to go out and score 90 on you. It's just not how they're built. But, man, they are suffocating in the half court, and they're getting just enough on the offensive end.
In that 3-game stretch, 2 of those on the road, and then you have a home game against Wisconsin. Yeah. So those are 3 big wins. It feels like this team is playing with an appreciation, a looseness that, they're not scared to lose. They've already lost quite a bit. They've already had a lot of people, okay, they're already looking forward to next year. Well, now you got a guy that gives them an edge offensively in Jeremiah Williams. You combine that with their defense. Others have upped their game. They're playing confident. They're playing free and loose. And that's a great recipe for upsets and for success. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they continue, especially as teams, now they know Jeremiah Williams. Now they'll be more prepared facing them.
Yeah, how about him? First week in the Big Ten, he's Big Ten Player of the Week.
This is easy, nothing, right?
Yeah. This is simple. Give me one more before we wrap this up.
Now, this is a different take. Okay, Iowa, 6-7. Their remaining schedule is brutal.
Yes,
they're going on the road to Maryland, to Michigan State, to Northwestern. They got Illinois twice. They got Wisconsin. Brutal stretch, but I like it. It seems like they have a competitive spirit, some leadership on that roster. You look at that game Sunday against the Gophers, down by 20. Peyton Sandford plays with a spark. I think he could play in the NBA. I think he's that type of player, can knock down shots. I love Tony Perkins, the edge that he brings. He's been consistent all season. They went to a little bit of a different lineup in that second half. And they spread the floor because Patrick McCaffrey was playing great. Dix, Perkins, Sandford, and Owen Freeman as a freshman, 17 and double-double, 4 rebounds or 4 assists, blocking shots. So they spaced the floor more. They were really good on the defensive end. Of course, it helped that Garcia was out with that injury, but I thought defensively they locked down, which they did not do on the road against Penn State to close out that game. And then, that offense gets going. So a brutal stretch, but this is kind of a feel thing, Dave. I like the fight that I'm seeing from them, and they can fill it up. So we'll see if they can get some big wins and really propel them into March.
This is a team that, frankly, needs a brutal stretch. I mean, if we're talking about going into the Big Ten tournament and seeding, no one wants that. But if we're talking about actually trying to make it to the NCAA tournament, they have no quad one wins. But 5 of their last 7 games are quad one opportunities. I think they have shown us that this is a team that's capable of scoring with anyone. So if you can lock down enough on the defensive end, who knows? You win a few of those games. Bubble's pretty soft this year. Maybe a team that can work its way into that conversation. What a Sunday it was in Lincoln. First ever sellout crowd for a women's game at Pinnacle Bank Arena, and the Huskers delivered against Caitlin Clark and company. Nebraska rallying from 14 down in the final quarter to top the second-ranked Hawkeyes 82-79. Jaz Shelley had 10 points in the fourth, including the 3 there, that put the Huskers on top for good. Jaz Shelley joins us now. She is our big interview. Jaz, congratulations on an amazing game on Sunday. What did that win mean to your program, particularly coming off what was a disappointing showing the previous time out against Rutgers?
Yeah, and that's that. I think that our team really needed this one for our confidence. I think we got that. We're capable of this night in and night out, and I'm really proud of our team being able to bounce back. We got to win against Michigan this week as well, so I think now we're on the upward trend, and I'm really proud.
What was the discussion beforehand for your team? I mean, it's a really interesting situation, right? You're going to have an incredible opportunity to be on the biggest stage in your game. You've got a sellout crowd. You have Caitlin coming, chasing this record. Obviously, all of the notoriety that's gotten her, and deservedly so. But you're a team that's sitting on the bubble somewhat here, maybe a little bit uncertain in terms of NCAA opportunities. You got the world watching. What was the discussion like for you guys?
Yeah, we just wanted to treat it like every other game. We didn't want the bright lights to get too much. We had a focus on just staying locked in within our team and just focusing on each other, and everything was inwards, and let's not look out, let's not look what's going on, and just stick together as a team. And that was pretty much the game plan.
Take me through those final 30 seconds there. You hit that 3, which we showed on the way in, to give your team the lead. You hit a bunch of free throws down the stretch as well. What's going through your mind when you go from taking the lead to, hey, we're going to win this thing?
Yeah, I think just continuing to have that belief. Our teammates the whole time are like, we got this, we still got this. And I think that reassurance was really nice. But also I think my mind just went somewhere else, and I was like, I need to do everything I can to win this game right now. So it was pretty cool.
Take me through the aftermath, the court storm, the celebration, the last couple of days. Like what stands out when you replay the events of the last 48 hours or so in your mind?
Yeah, it's pretty surreal. I would say I woke up this morning and it kind of really sunk in for me, but now we're over and looking over a Ohio State scout. So
yeah,
kind of have to shift our focus pretty quick, but it's a really surreal feeling, and it's really good for our team.
Take me into it. Take me into that moment when the fans stormed the court, when you realize the game's over. Like what do you remember about it?
I'm actually pretty lucky that we had our men's team that was sitting courtside watching our game. So they were actually the first ones to come out and storm the court. They're pretty used to it now. So it's pretty cool to have them a part of it. I ran into a bunch of people, a bunch of my teammates, and we almost all got knocked down. It was a pretty cool feeling.
What was it like to celebrate with your teammates in the locker room after? Describe that scene.
Yeah, we were waiting for Coach to get in. Everyone came in one by one because we were all kind of stuck in the middle of the court. But as soon as she came in, we had the waters out. We had a shower. It was sweet. It was a really cool feeling.
I think part of what made it so cool, and you brought this out in your post-game interview, is that your parents were there from Australia, as people have probably gathered from listening to you, or certainly probably know your story by this point that you are from Australia. I mean, that's hardly around the corner. They had gotten there, from what I gathered, the day before, right? What did it mean to have them there, and what were your interactions like with them after the game?
Oh, it was everything. We don't have anything like this, like 14,000 sellout. It was unreal for my parents to be able to witness that, and for them they're all in tears. It was a really cool feeling to celebrate that with them.
How frequently do they get here? Like, how many of your games have they seen historically in your time in college?
So my grandparents almost come every year except for the pandemic, and then my mom hasn't seen me play in 2 years.
Wow. Wow, that's pretty amazing. I would say she wins the good timing award there. They should invite her more frequently. Your parents both have basketball backgrounds, I know, and that's part of how you got into the sport. Tell me about like where they played and how they encouraged you to become a player, and a couple of your siblings as well.
Yeah, so we grew up in the country part of Victoria, and so both my parents played professional basketball. I grew up around it. Both my older brother and older sister played. My oldest brother actually went to a Division II college, Kentucky Wesleyan, for basketball. And so I kind of watched him go to college, and that's kind of how I got my love, my passion to want to go overseas as well.
What are your first memories of playing basketball?
So there's three of my siblings, older sister, older brother, and a younger brother. And we would always play, we call it King of the Ring. I think you guys call it King of the Court or Ones. We played that almost every day in the backyard.
Tell me a little bit about Mo, Australia. I have to admit, I've never heard of Mo. I looked it up. Looks like maybe 90 minutes or so from Melbourne. Describe your hometown.
Yeah, it's a very small town. We pronounce it Moe. That's where I kind of spent all my
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Spent all my junior career there. I actually moved a little closer to the city just before I was about 16, just to be closer to basketball. But Moe is a really great place, hardworking town, and I'm really proud to be from there.
How did your recruitment work once you decided you wanted to come to the U.S. for college?
Yeah, so I was fortunate to have the coaches come out and watch me represent my country at World Championships, and that's kind of how they recruited me from there. And then me and my family came over and took a couple of visits. Everything seemed great at that time. I didn't really know what I was looking for. Every school was unreal. And then we just did the recruiting process and like normal, and I came over to the U.S.
You know, it's interesting. There are so many Australians playing college sports in the U.S. now. I mean, I think there was a time when it was kind of notable, Luke Longley or whoever it was kind of back in the day. It's really not that notable anymore. I mean, practically every punter, it seems, in college football is from Australia. But you were mentioning, you said we have nothing like this in Australia. I mean, it is pretty amazing, right? 14,000 people watching non-professionals play a sporting event. Like, when you try to explain that to people back home, like, is there a comprehension of how big this is and how meaningful it is?
No, it is very hard to explain. In Australia, we have universities, but they're not really tied in with sports. We play professional basketball from a young age. So telling people I'm coming over here to play college basketball, they don't quite understand it. But now seeing how much attention that college basketball's got, especially in the women's, I think they're starting to understand what's happening over here now.
Yeah, no doubt. So you actually went to Oregon originally, were there for a couple of years, then decided to transfer. Why did you ultimately decide to go to Nebraska?
Nebraska's always been my home away from home. Even when we had some bushfires and stuff in Oregon, I came to Nebraska to visit some of my best friends. I've always had a tie here. People are so genuine. I'm in love with the fans. I really feel like I have a family here, and that's what makes this place so special.
So you guys beat number 2 Iowa, and as you were mentioning at the beginning, as you started to flip the page, you get number 2 again. This time it's number 2 Ohio State. So you got to be refocused fairly quickly. They're quite good, as we know. What's the scouting report on the Buckeyes? What are you focused on for this one?
Yeah, Ohio State, a very, very talented team. All around, they have some incredible pieces. They're long, they're athletic, they turn the ball over. It's going to be a tough one, but we like the number 2. But they're an incredible team, so we're looking forward to matching up with them tomorrow.
That sounds great. Jaz Shelley, really a pleasure to visit with you. Regards to everyone in Moe. I'm sorry that I blew the name. I just looked at it. It looked like Mo to me. But yeah. Apologies to all Moians. But again, congratulations on your incredible career to this point, and we look forward to seeing what's next here for the Huskers.
Thank you so much for having me. 2
games tonight in the Big Ten. It starts in Champaign. We've got struggling Michigan visiting the Illini. After that, Wisconsin trying to end its 4-game skid. The Badgers will host Ohio State. Trent's back with me. We're going to start with the Wolverines and the Illini. This does not feel like a particularly competitive game, just given the fact that Illinois is at home. Michigan's on the road without Doug McDaniel. They have not been a particularly competitive team without him on the road. That being said, you never know. Michigan coming off of a nice win last week. What are you watching in this one?
You got to play the games, and every game is unique and different. You know, I look back to their first matchup, which Illinois controlled, especially in that second half. Coleman Hawkins just totally dominated that game. I thought on both ends of the floor at 21 and 10, I believe, 6 steals even. So he really just was so disruptive defensively. Now, I would say for Michigan, they had some success going inside. Okay, Terrace Reed had 20 points, went 8 for 10 from the field. Kamwa had 16 points. So that's where Michigan has to play inside out. They could have an advantage there. And then if they're knocking down some shots, of course, it could be a ball game tonight. No, there's no doubt. For the Illini, though, they're coming off a tough loss where we've talked about this, Dave, that haven't closed out games very well and did not do it in East Lansing at all. You saw the game in Champaign that Nebraska came back and almost won that game, so they got to close out games more. I would like to see them just have much better movement in the half court, especially down the stretch. They play a lot of one-on-one basketball. I'm not opposed to that, especially with their talent, their individual talent. But I'd like to see some more action, some more movement before they get into those matchups. And then finally, defensively, they haven't been great. And when I look at their individual talent, I think they can be much better there. They don't turn people over. What I would like to see when you have a versatile team, an experienced team, change up their defense sometimes. Get more aggressive. Maybe incorporate some trapping, some double team to just extend the pressure. It doesn't have to be full court, but in the half court, I think they have the versatility, the athletes to be disruptive, and they have not done that this year.
This is a Michigan team that, frankly, I'm not sure. Maybe you tell me. Look, they're struggling offensively, right? So, I mean, the last 4 games without Doug McDaniel on the road, they're under a point per possession. So maybe conventional wisdom would say, just do your thing defensively, and they would need a really good game to beat you. Maybe the flip side is this is a time you could sprinkle in some of that. I don't know. Philosophically, you tell me. What's the notion
for Illinois?
Yeah, for Illinois.
Yeah, well,
would you try to do something?
I think this isn't a young team. Okay,
right.
These guys have experience. I think they can give some different looks. And you're not just playing this game. Okay, now you don't take them lightly, but you're looking ahead. Okay,
well, that's what I'm saying.
What are we going to face
Yeah.
in the Big Ten against a Purdue as we get into the NCAA tournament? If you face elite guards, elite bigs, you can't give them the same look every time down the court. I think you can't expect one-on-one defensively to maybe hold up against the best players in the country. So give a different look. I would like that different look to be aggressive. They don't turn teams over.
But isn't that by design? I mean, because early on in Underwood's tenure, they tried to turn teams over left and right, and they were all over the place. And then teams were shooting like 58% from 2-point range against them.
They really extended and got overextended. And I'm not talking about gambling, but I think with their talent, with their length and quickness, they could get into maybe doubling the post, extending on ball screens at times, just to give a different look and scramble out of that. You know, this is a totally different talent, experience level than they had 4, 5, 6 years ago when Brad Underwood first started at Illinois. So just something different. I think you got to give the best players a different look, and I'd like to see them try that starting tonight.
It's a manageable stretch of schedule here for Illinois. 3 of their next 5 are at home. The road games are Maryland and Penn State. It's not crazy to think you could go 5-0. I mean, again, no coach wants to talk about that, but I think we can look at that stretch and say, hey, if they went 5-0 in that stretch, I wouldn't be shocked. And then in those last 3 games, you have games against Purdue and Wisconsin, as well as a game against Iowa. Those will be great tests, but can you then go into the Big Ten tournament with some confidence and go into that final stretch with some confidence?
Yeah, momentum, confidence is so important. And I also say rhythm. I think this team still, and they're playing pretty good, okay, but they still don't maybe have the rhythm I don't think they're playing as well as they could. I think their ceiling is higher, and some of that is defensively, like I talked about, but also offensively, as Terrence Shannon is back in the lineup. Played well at Michigan State. Marcus Damas didn't look quite as aggressive. Quincy Guerrier has been more quiet. Ty Rodgers doesn't play as much in the second half. He's been playing well. So I think there's still some rhythm from both a minutes perspective. It's hard managing that many talented players, but also the flow of their offense. They still have some work to do.
Facing a Michigan team tonight that is last in the Big Ten in defensive efficiency in conference play. Let's turn the page to Ohio State and Wisconsin, and the Badgers are the story here, and not for reasons that they would want to be this story, Trent. 4 straight losses. I mean, look, 3 of these games are on the road. The other one is against Purdue. So I don't know that there's great shame in losing 4 in a row. But, man, they just haven't looked good here. I mean, they've gotten off to some really bad starts. They've been stagnant. They haven't shot the ball well at all from behind the arc. As you look at this stretch here for Wisconsin, do you just say 3 on the road and 1 against Purdue and these things happen? Or do you say there are bigger issues here?
You can't just say that. I think in watching this set with John Beilein, I thought he nailed it on this weekend. He said for Greg Gard, he's got to get them confident back. Okay, that's on the coaching staff. That's on the players. They look out of sync. They don't look like they're quite as assertive as they were earlier in the season. I think confidence is huge. You lose 4 straight. It's easy for that to waver. So there's a sense of urgency. There's a sense of assertiveness that I have not seen from them lately, and that's both on defense and on offense. I think things need to start defensively. You can control defense, rebounding a bit more than making shots. The one area, though, offensively that I would say is Stephen Crowell. Been very quiet lately. Those 4 losses, been in single figures, all those games. Those 4 games combined, he's only 20 field goal attempts. I think this is a guy that they could play through a bit more, kind of like Rink Master Nebraska. He can space the floor. I want to see him more aggressive, hunting in his own shot, but also when things are stagnant, dump it down to him in the post. He's a good passer, so that would be offensively. Play through the post, play through your big man a bit more.
Ray Fell and I were talking about him yesterday, and he pointed out that a lot of teams have guarded him with their 4-man. And that seems to have been a challenge for him on the offensive end because it has not allowed him to do some of those things on the perimeter that he's so good at. As he said, such a great passer and can pull people away from the hoop. But if you have someone, it's not your 5 guy.
I'd say post them up. And now Rutgers had Amori who could hang off Tyler Wall, lurking there on the backside, which made it tough.
8 shots, yes.
Yeah, so it's easier to talk about, but I would still like to see them play through them, whether perimeter or post more.
I think one of the things that stood out to me in watching this stretch of games, and this might be to what you were talking about with Coach Beilein and kind of the confidence, is it feels like when things start to go bad, they just haven't had an answer, and teams have put together massive runs on them. Part of it's the beginning of games. I mean, the Rutgers game, it was like kind of from the outset. But in the middle of games, too, you know, where they'll give up a 12-2 run or whatever it is, and they just can't seem to stop it. And that, to me, I think you would know better than me, but that to me speaks to confidence and to not feeling like you know exactly where to go, particularly offensively in those situations where, hey, we go here, we can get a bucket.
Yeah, it's concerning because this is a veteran group. And look, basketball, sports, it's a game of runs, both within a game, both in a season. Now they're reeling now, 4 straight losses. So now their back's against the wall. So can someone kind of correct that? That's with confidence. That's with experience in the course of a game. It's making sure you run your stuff, but also being aggressive in the right moments. I'd say Stephen Crowell's a guy they can play through. I've seen Chucky Hepburn be a bit more aggressive in some games, but you go to your veteran guys, and most of this team's veteran, right? But they have to find their spots and be aggressive in those moments. But managing a game where a 6-0 run doesn't turn into a 12-0 run, but you stop it right there, that's going to be crucial for them.
Let's focus a bit on the Buckeyes. We haven't talked much about them. They're coming off a nice win. I mean, a double overtime win against Maryland. I thought they really dug down. Bruce Thornton, man, he came up with some big shots.
Yep.
They got stops a couple times on Jameer Young, where a basket would have won Maryland the game, forcing overtime, forcing double overtime. The issue now, though, is on the road. They have just not been good. In fact, haven't won a road game all year. They're the only Big Ten team that hasn't won a true road game anywhere all season. Again, we mentioned Nebraska hasn't won a conference road game. But what can Ohio State do to maybe build off that Maryland game and come into the Kohl Center and give Wisconsin a hard time.
Talk about confidence. Go back to that game. What did you do? Okay, you gutted out a tough game against a tough team. They made free throws. They limited turnovers. The backcourt it played well. I think going tonight, that backcourt has got to win those matchups. Roddy Gale and Bruce Thornton has got to win the matchups against Hepburn, against Klesman, against those guys for the Badgers. Play through them. And then, I think the shot selection offensively, they got to play inside out. Jamison Battle shot the ball pretty well this season. Aside from him, they've struggled a bit more, and you got to play inside out. Can you attack the basket, attack the glass? They have the athletes, they have the size there. And then, as it's kicked out, you're going to have to knock down some shots with some confidence, especially on the road.
It's interesting. I had them on the road against Northwestern, and we were talking, Chris Holtman and I, before the game, and he was saying, we just haven't guarded well here on the road, and getting guys, especially a young team, to really get dialed in some of these challenging environments, to follow a scouting report, that's been one of the things that he struggled with, and it has shown up in the numbers. I mean, their opponents are shooting 47% from three in road games. That is the second worst of any team in the nation. It's like 361st in the nation. What does that tell you?
Well, I think most young guys are concerned about the offense. How do I look? Am I making shots? And that can kind of dictate your game. But looking at those, thinking about those numbers, those are critical, Dave. You got to defend the three-point line. And when you got a big fella like Felix Akpar back there that can clean up shots, Evan Mahafy's long and rangy, close out harder. That's got to be a point of emphasis for them, taking away the three, funneling them into their shot blocker like Rutgers did with Amori.
All right, so that is the story tonight. Again, that one in Madison. Think about Wisconsin, man. They were in first place in the Big Ten 2 weeks ago, and now here they are.
A lot can change. We'll see what happens the next couple
mired
weeks.
in this 4-game skid.
We want somebody that wants to be a Bruin. Well, we didn't get somebody that wants to be a Bruin. We got a Bruin. Come on out, coach. Your new head coach.
Seen at UCLA yesterday, A.D. Martin Jarman announcing the hiring of DeShaun Foster as the Bruins' new head coach, replacing Chip Kelly, who left to become the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. And I think it's safe to say from that reaction, it was a popular choice with the players. Foster, former Bruin All-American, spent the last 7 seasons on Kelly's staff as the running backs coach. He'd actually left for the NFL over the past couple weeks, accepting a job as the Raiders running backs coach before Jarman lured him back to Westwood. As promised, Anthony Herron joining me now. This feels like one of those situations, Anthony, where I don't know if you can sit here and say, well, it's a home run hire, or you can sit here and say, well, it's not. It's TBD, right? We're talking about a guy with an incredible history at UCLA, both as a player and as an assistant coach, but also someone who's not been a head coach, who's not been a coordinator. So I think this is one of those where you kind of take a wait-and-see approach.
It's not the standard order of succession for a coach to become a head coach, especially at a major program like UCLA. But the timeline for Chip Kelly's departure is, of course, a big part of that reason why. And so there are some examples that I would say, even of recent vintage, where we've seen coaches who've been thrust into a position where the timeline perhaps didn't agree with them, or even just the hiring cycle didn't necessarily suit the program, where there has been some success. I mean, I don't know, Pat Fitzgerald wouldn't be one that would be considered that recent, but obviously after the untimely demise of Randy Walker, then he ends up getting the opportunity to be the head coach at Northwestern and ends up, leading them to a really impressive stretch of wins and championship.
Yeah, winningest coach in school history.
Yeah, so I mean, that worked out. Dabo Swinney
he was one I was thinking about.
Clemson.
You know what? Terry Donahue, who is arguably the most successful coach in UCLA history, was the same thing. I mean, he was a position coach. He was not a coordinator. He had played at UCLA, and look at what he turned into. I mean, was one of the great coaches, not just in UCLA history, one of the most successful coaches in the Pac-8, Pac-10, Pac-12.
Yes, right.
So
in the Pacific time zone.
Yeah,
right.
yes, on the West Coast. So, yeah, I mean, obviously there are precedents for this working out really well. But you talk about the timing, too, and, let's just put it all on the table. When your coach leaves, your players have 30 days that they can leave. The portal opens up for them. So from that point of view, you want to have a coach who players want to play for. And it is very clear from watching that the players want to play for him.
And we've already gotten through the recruiting cycle. Both signing days
Right.
have taken place. And so, that put UCLA, their administration, in a position to try and make sure that not only was it a coach who had passion for the program and could communicate that passion to the program, but had familiarity with the roster and, frankly, the coaching staff that's in place as well. So that's an advantage to hiring DeShaun Foster here, where he's been on staff there in Westwood for so many seasons at this point, knows the coaching staff inside and out as well. We'll have hires to make on the offensive side, especially with offensive coordinator, but on the whole, it is a program that has developed talent really at an impressive rate when you think about the fact that Chip Kelly, whether at Oregon or at UCLA, has never been one of the renowned recruiters in the country just from a sheer star rating perspective. Right. But he's developed talent at UCLA. When you look at the running back position, the talent that's gone to the National Football League and the way they've run the football, top 20 in the country in rushing for the last 4 seasons at this point. And DeShaun Foster is viewed as the most integral reason why, because as the running backs coach, he's been able to develop talent over and over again, send guys to the NFL. And so now there's an opportunity to take what he's done in developing that running back room and sort of, exponentially see if he can mushroom that out to the entire program and have the development that's been in place at UCLA and have that roster continue to develop under his watch.
Led the Pac-12 in rushing each of the last 2 years, something they hadn't done previously since 1976. Now, I think you can make an argument, hey, it's Kelly's offense, and Kelly may have had something to do with that.
Right.
But again, these last couple of years, they have run the ball extremely well. I do want to ask you quickly about Kelly. What do you make of his move to Ohio State?
It seems to be just kind of the latest example of something we've seen in recent weeks where coaches who, when you have an opportunity for something that might feel a little bit more comfortable, let's say, because if you're a head coach in modern college football and you're seeing the way the landscape is shifting, then there are guys who get a little bit uncomfortable with it and they're trying to figure out what is going to be my lane in this moving forward. So whether it's an opportunity in the National Football League or like this where Ohio State opens up after folks were anticipating that would happen with Bill O'Brien leaving, and then Chip Kelly has one of his best friends coaching there in Columbus. I don't see this as being something that is viewed as, sort of an epidemic that will infest college football where a bunch of coaches will leave, because not everyone has what they may view as a better or more comfortable opportunity that is still of prominence. But there have certainly been examples of that as of late, and I don't think it should be ignored. But the system is going to continue to evolve and adjust. So I don't necessarily see this, and especially the Chip Kelly example here, as one that a lot of folks who do have legitimate concern about how the sport moves forward, that we should really be overly concerned about. No one's going to want to coach college football. These are still amazing jobs and incredible opportunities.
I think it's really important to consider the context, too, of
Yes.
the previous relationship of Day and Kelly. They're both
Right.
from New Hampshire. They're very good friends, know each other really well. This is an opportunity to work together. I don't think Chip Kelly would have left for just any OC job.
Exactly.
This was an unusual opportunity, one that opened up, as you said. Bill O'Brien took the job and then ends up going to Boston College, and just kind of makes sense for Chip Kelly to go to Columbus. It is time for today's big stat. Tyson Walker having a fabulous final season in East Lansing, 19 points per game, on pace to be the 3rd best scoring average for any player in the nearly 30 years Tom Izzo has been the Spartans coach. It is not unreasonable to think he could end up first on that list. As we learned in this excerpt from the Big Ten Network's original series, The Journey, it's a story that would have seemed unlikely just a few years ago.
My college career began at Northeastern University. I spent 2 years there. I decided to transfer because I was performing well and it was kind of going under the radar, so I wanted to be nationally known. I just felt like this was the right place, the way they play, get up and down. I was going to be able to shoot the ball.
Walker, under 4, Walker fires. He got it!
Although my first year was a little rough. Coming in, wasn't really sure what to expect. There was times I was questioning why I came here. I was just being so frustrated, just how I was playing and how things were going for me.
I think he's become a tougher kid. I think he's played through injuries. He's had more than a few when you're his size and you're getting banged around. There's not many shooters that have to be the best defenders, and he is one of them.
Frazier drives, rejected by Walker.
The things that he's doing now, he did at Northeastern. It was just about adjusting to the Big Ten level. I'm from Westbury, New York. Basketball in New York is definitely a little different.
Oh my goodness! Up and under and a reverse kiss.
Before we got to the tournament, Coach said, if we win these 2 games, we get to play in New York. And he was just like, and you're gonna give me some pizza? We beat Marquette, and after the game, we in the locker room, and he pointed at me, he was just like, now you owe me my pizza. It was the 3rd time we played at MSG.
Walker drives it with 5 on the clock. Walker scores!
I felt I didn't play good the 2 times before that, so just didn't want to have another bad performance at home.
Clock ticks. Hall finding Walker. Walker already stripped by Noel. Ball is loose. Kansas State wins it.
We didn't like the way the Sweet 16 ended last year, and we knew if we came back together with the group that we had, we got another shot to do it again, we can make a difference. I came back just because I wanted to do more. Score 1,000 points here.
Rise and fire. Walker.
And then also wanted to win. I knew coming in like how far I was from 1,000, but I didn't really keep track of it.
Tyson Walker. Maybe is this it? It is! 1,000 points in the Michigan State uniform for Tyson Walker.
I was happy for him. If I could find another Tyson, I might spend more time in the transfer portal.
Last time we saw Walker and the Spartans, they were greatly enhancing their tournament resume. 3rd quad 1 win of the year. That came Saturday against Illinois. 5-9 against the top 2 quads. Nothing approaching a bad loss. Well positioned to add to their Big Ten record with a 26th straight bid to the dance. Mike DeCourcy had him as a 9 seed in his latest bracket, which just came out this morning. What stands out to you as you think about their potential in the NCAA tournament?
I'll start with Tyson Walker, okay, as their lead guy. He's like a stoic assassin. I mean, he can play, and he's so good with the ball in his hands or moving without the ball. So you have a lead guard like that you can play through, and then you have other experienced players. I will stay again, as I said, open up this show with A.J. Hoggard and Malik Hall are the keys. They went for 55 points against Illinois. If those 2 guys are playing well, you got wings that are knocking down shots, shooting 37% from the 3. This team would be scary. I would not want to see them as a 1 seed if they're a 9 seed.
That is the thing, right? Like, think about that. If you are a 1 seed and your reward in the 2nd round is a game against a team that was in the top 5 in the nation in the preseason, that to me is, look, that's what the resume says they are. That's not necessarily what the roster says they are.
And I think about Tom Izzo, he gets them prepared early. They get exposed early. They learn their lessons, and they always seem to be trending up in the right direction this time of year.
They are part of our Valentine's Day doubleheader tomorrow. We'll tip things off with a visit to Penn State. Then Iowa squaring off with Maryland. It's Big Ten Hoops presented by Ram Trucks. Comes your way tomorrow, Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. And you will be back in here for Big Ten today.
I'll be back here tomorrow, yeah. So tune in. We got some great games tonight, more great games tomorrow. Who knows what could happen, right? So much could happen in these next few weeks.
My sources tell me there's a serious host upgrade tomorrow as well with Anthony Herron.
Big Ant. We'll spend Valentine's Day morning together.
That is beautiful. That's a lovely story. I will see you for the Hoops in studio tomorrow night.